Now, what is going on at the bottom of the Baltic Sea, Linda?
Well, I have been so fascinated by the side-scan sonar ever since last summer, or fall, I guess it was, when they first started being circulated on the net by the Swedish diving company. And when you go to earthfiles.com, www.earthfiles.com, I hope everybody listening will do that so you can see these extraordinary side-scan sonar images of not only the one that most people have seen that is sort of circular with a lot of lines in it, but there is a second fascinating object that's about 600 feet away, and I have a very good side-scan sonar image of that, and also what these people are that I'm going to be talking about in interviewing Peter Lundgren, who is one of the co-owners. And I think that when you go through the Earth Files report, you will begin to get an appreciation for why they have finally decided they want to go back in May, even though they've had a real struggle with money because it costs $500,000 just to get a submersible down into this area that is 65 miles away from the nearest land. And I've learned some very interesting things about the Baltic Sea. I didn't know this before. It is a very good preservative because the salt content is there, but it's low, and there are no wood-burrowing organisms. And the head of the archaeology division at the Swedish Maritime Museum, his name is Andreas Olsson, estimates that there could be 20,000 shipwrecks on the Baltic Sea floor. And he compares it, he says, it's like a shipwreck laboratory, the best in the world, where the cold, dark water has preserved sunken objects for centuries. And what we don't know is what is the timeline on these very strange objects on the Baltic Sea bottom. It was a year ago, on June 10th of 2011, that 42-year-old Peter Lundberg and his partner, Dennis Asberg, set off on an expedition that they were after 3 shipwrecks that they had researched and were convinced were on the bottom of the Baltic, and they hoped had good champagne and spirits and cognac in them like they have found before. And they had specific places that they were looking for where they had researched that German U-boats had knocked down a Russian, or it was a ship that was a Swedish ship that was sent off to Russia, and this was during World War I. Well, after 9 days of technical difficulties, they had to change a boat. Their search was still ongoing, 60 miles from the nearest land, when Peter Lundgren noticed a very strange image on their side-scan sonar. Now, the theories of what he's looking at over the last 12 months have ranged from ancient archaeological structures, 19th century Russian warships built in circular shapes, a Soviet Cold War underwater base, and even a UFO. But the old Russian round ships from the 19th century were only 30 meters across. And historically, none were ever supposed to be in the Baltic Sea. Now, the size of the large circular object goes to 60 meters, 197 feet. That's 2/3 of a football field, George. This is a big object.
Sure.
And the sonar images of the unidentified object began to be compared to George Lucas's feature film star, the Millennium Falcon. So people started putting that out on the Internet, and that even brought to Peter Lundberg and Dennis Asberg at the Explorer Ocean in Sweden even more questions about, can't you get down there on some kind of an expedition and find out what these are made of and what they might be? And so they're planning to return in mid-May 2012, not long from now. They're feverishly putting stuff together now to go down with more sophisticated gear and see at least if they can determine without a dive. And you will learn now from Peter Lundberg, from the Swedish Ocean Explorer, why all of our essential intuitive sense that you just dive down to find out is not so easy. Here now is Peter Lundberg in Stockholm, Sweden.
Suddenly, when we were searching for one of the wrecks, this circle just showed up. Well, my first comment to the guys sitting around me was, "Hey guys, we have a UFO." That was, of course, for fun, but anyway, it looked like UFO. Then we checked the zone we had recorded, and we understood this is something very strange.
Can you talk about what's going through your mind and your discussions with your colleagues about what this might be?
The size of the circle is approximately 60 meters in diameter, and that the size of it when I saw it was the thing that I understood this is nothing that can be dumped from a ship or something. It's too big for that.
This is an object that is somewhat circular on the bottom of the Baltic Sea between Sweden and Finland that is 197 feet, and that is large. That is almost two-thirds the size of a football field down there.
Yeah, exactly. You can place a jumbo jet over it, and it will nearly fit inside the circle. Yeah, it's very big. Many things about this circle are strange.
Is it true that you found also a second object somewhere nearby?
Yes. We found that second object about 200 meters away from the circle.
When did you find the second object?
Just minutes later. Then we also have the track. It is about 4,000 or 5,000 feet long. The second object about 200 meters away from the circle, and it also has a track, a much shorter track, but it's going in the same direction as the circle's track. And when we draw a line through the bases of the tracks, they cross at the same spot where the circle's tracks start or end. So it looks like they have come from the same direction, from the same spot.
When you say track, do you mean that it is like some sort of gouge on the bottom of the Baltic Sea where the big, almost 200-foot diameter object may have landed, and that you're looking at the trail of where it scraped to the point where it is?
Yeah, it might be like that. Absolutely. Or it could be some kind of remains from an old volcano or something. The sonar image, what I can understand from it, it doesn't look like that. But it can be that as well. We don't know, really. But there are two tracks going to or from these two objects. The objects are not in the middle of the tracks. The tracks are either starting with the objects or ending at the objects. Both of the tracks are coming from the same spot. And from the circle, it is about 1,600 meters away, and from the second object, it's about 1,800 meters away. But when we draw a line from the objects through the tracks, they end up at the same spot.
That spot is where?
1,500 meters south of the circle.
That was the impact site, and that the object slid to the position that it is in now, and the second object ended up in the position that it is because there was an impact, and both objects slid on the bottom of the Baltic Sea?
If it is an asteroid, and when it hits the water, it's coming very, very high speed. And when it hit the water, this asteroid breaks up in two pieces. The smaller one flies away a bit, but the larger one, as we see now, the circle, is going through the water body with such high speed. It is a pressure wave going through the water down on the bottom, and the track is because of that. And then the circle ends up where it is now. The second object, the smaller one, when this object hits the water and this smaller object flies away a bit further on, and then it hits the water and sinks down. So I think in that case the track is there because it has been a pressure wave through the water that has made the track.
Can you talk about both objects?
Yes, we have the first object, the circle, and it's round, but if you zoom in, you will see that there are some kind of objects are very squared. It's not natural formation on the bottom. The second object is about 200 meters away, or 600 feet. It is about 120 feet across, but it's not round. It's like a rectangular box, but the top of it is like two arches put together. It looks like a church window, Gothic church window. And if they have been in one body from the beginning, we don't know, but I mean, it might have been like that.
That the rectangular object with the arches may have been somehow connected to or inside of the larger round object?
Yeah, exactly. The circle is broken up in one side. I mean, it might be that the other object, the smaller rectangular shaped one, is a part that has been there in some way. A lot of disturbances when we passed that.
Do I understand that as you were approaching the second object that's not round but has structure to it, that you had some kind of magnetic disturbance in your effort to photograph it?
Yes. I don't know if it's magnetic disturbances, but there is quite a lot of disturbances, and it is because of the waves. But when we passed the second object, lots of disturbances.
Peter, if these objects were made out of metal, would you know that from studying them with the side scan sonar?
No, we can't tell if they are of metal or not. What we can say is that we have an echo on the other side of the side scan sonar, and that is because when the sonar waves or pulses hit this object, the sound waves or pulses are bouncing back very hard, so you get the echo on the other side. So it might be gravel or sand or rock, but we can't tell what it is.
Do you have a speculation about what they are made of and what they might be?
Well, I've never seen something like this. The only thing I have to rely on is the sonar images. So I don't know more than anyone else. The second thing is that I am not a UFO believer, so I have very hard to believe this is something that is coming from outer space. It might be an asteroid, a comet, or natural thing, or I don't know.
But you said that your very first reaction was, this looks like a UFO.
Yeah, it did. But I don't believe in UFOs. Well, you know.
Can you talk more about why you think it's artificial?
Because when you look at the structures, the sides are not completely straight as they look now. But when we take disturbances away, there are completely straight lines. It looks like some kind of buildings or squared boxes. Then we have these thinner lines going through the circle. These are also straight when we take disturbances away. It's very, very strange.
Mm-hmm. Do they both appear to be intelligently constructed objects, not nature?
I have to put it like this. It is nothing as I have seen natural things before. It looks like, because of all these straight lines and very circular shape of the circle, I would say that, yeah, if it is natural, it is very, very strange. It would fit more if made by someone. I have difficulties to see that we have found something that is fallen down from space, which is not man-made, but made by someone else. So I'm trying to find natural explanations regarding this as well.
What are the next steps to get down there close and to do it with cameras and getting up close enough to do some testing where you might be able to figure out what these are made of and what they are?
Yeah, next step is we are preparing an expedition that will go out in mid-May, and we will bring quite sophisticated equipment with us so we can get three-dimensional images of the bottom. We will have something called sub-bottom profiler that will penetrate through the layer of clay down to bedrock, so we can see if it is something natural, if it's something that has gone through the bedrock like a gas well or something like that. We will have more sophisticated sonars on them. We will have the cameras, and we will take bottom and water samples, so it's nothing poisonous down there. Maybe we will dive on it if we think it's necessary. The thing is that it's very bad visibility in the Baltic. A diver can't see much more than 2 feet or something in front of him.
Why is that?
A lot of sediment in the water. We have to find out first if it is something poisonous. It might be leftover from the wars, maybe mustard gas or something more horrible down there. So it is very difficult and technical kind of diving, and it's very risky. The risk is visibility, the darkness, the coldness. Going down there, not knowing what he will find, might be leading to a diver's death, and we do not want that.
And George, you are hearing from a man who is 42 years old and has been diving since he was 16. So his experience in the Baltic is huge. And it was extraordinary to hear him talk about how dangerous it is to literally dive in some kind of a suit in the Baltic Sea. And about going down in the submarine. They've got a submarine that has 12 seats, but it costs $500,000 for them to get the submarine hoisted up. They have to have a ship big enough to have a crane, and it's a huge deal. And so they are interested in whether there are people who would like to participate, and if you divided $500,000 by 12 people, what that would be. But right now they're up against a timeline that they feel in terms of weather and conditions that they need to get out there in mid-May, and this may not be the time that they could even try to do the submarine. And depending upon what their robots going down and the cameras see, he said they might make the decision that they might go that extra step and do a live man dive, knowing that they have to have some kind of light down there. But it is 275 feet down. So maybe this time in May they will be able to report at least whether they are made of metal and seem to be something that is structured, whether it's terrestrial or something else, who knows.
This is a great story, and I can't wait to get some kind of preliminary results.
Well, he said I should call him again after they've been out there, so I'll do another update.
Absolutely, and let's probably do the update. If you get it in mid-May before your end of the month, of course, in May, you're going to be on a week earlier, aren't you, this time?
Yes, and it probably won't work for then. It'll probably have to be in the June.
Okay, but maybe a quick update from you.
I can get an update from them.
Okay, absolutely. Stay with us. Up next, as we've been reporting on this incredible boom sound in Clintonville, Wisconsin, it just doesn't go away. Linda's gone a little more in depth for us, and she's back with that story when we